Improve it. Improve it. Podcast. Improve it, peeps. Welcome to today's show. I am your host, Erin Deal. I am so freaking excited you are here. If you're new, I am the founder of the professional development company, Improve It. We're not just a podcast. We're an actual brand company, all the things. I am your host, and I'm also an author. I wrote a book called I See You, A Leader's Guide to Energizing Your Team Through Radical Empathy. It was an Amazon bestseller, #1 in business, health, and stress, and truly one of the greatest joys of my life was writing it and now seeing how it impacts people all over the world. So I am so thrilled that you hit play. If you hit play, it's no coincidence. You were meant to be here. And now you heard a little ticker go off. Ding, ding. That was my computer telling you, ding, ding. You are on track, my friends. You are in the right place. Now's the time to power down anything else. If you're driving, listening, stay focused on the road. But if you're listening to this while getting ready in the morning or going for a walk, let yourself just immerse yourself in today's content, because I promise you what you put into today is what you will get out of it. So just a quick background on Improve It, the company. If you don't know, our purpose is to elevate how you work through play. We are an improv-infused talent development company for a new generation of work. And you, my friend, I know you. You are a people leader who cares deeply about the people that you lead, the organizations you belong to, and the lives that you touch. And you are here to leave this world a bit better than you found it. So with that said, I got a shout out to our amazing Peeps community. We call ourselves the Peeps. There's a whole thing involved with this. There's a chicken hat, people. There's an episode, we'll link it in the show notes, that explains how we came up with the name, the Peeps community. So if you're new here, you can check it out. But I want to just give a shout out to one of our peeps, Jordan Riker, who left us an awesome review. Jordan says, I love Erin's energy and her topics. Her book and podcast episodes have helped me reorder my life. I would highly recommend her podcast if you are a busy professional trying to balance it all. Thank you, Jordan, for that review. And Jordan, if you're listening, I want you to just send me an email with your home address. I'm going to send you a signed copy of I See You. I know you've already read it, but you can pass on your copy to a friend and keep the signed copy for yourself. My friends, if you are listening and you have not yet left an iTunes review for this show, please scroll to the bottom of your iTunes app on your phone, hit 5 stars, maybe write a sentence or two. That review goes a long way, and it makes myself and team behind this show do a little happy dance every time we see a new one. It also helps amazing guests say, hey, I want to come on this show. They have a solid audience who believes in this work, and it not only attracts amazing guests, but more people to the Improve It Peeps community. So we need more light workers like yourself out there. Please keep that in mind when thinking about leaving a review. So let's get into today's show. Today's title is Empowering Inclusion While Battling Isolation at Work. Here's how to cope. Let's start, because you know what we've been doing lately on this show, hearing from you, our beautiful Improve It Peeps community, about what you need. And this was actually a question from one of our amazing peeps, Jeanette. Let's give it a listen.
Hey, this is Jeanette Johnson. I'm a Chief People Officer out of Chicago, Illinois for a software company. And my question is, when you build inclusion for other people, but you yourself are feeling left out, not included in your peer group, what do you do about that? Any ideas?
Such a freaking good question. I just want to take a moment and sit with that. How many of you can relate to the question at hand. When you're building inclusion for those around you, but you yourself are not feeling included, what do you do about that? Can you relate? How many of you have been this peep before? Or have been that leader who tries so hard to make a safe space for everyone around them, but struggles when it comes to feeling as though they are a part of a safe space? I have to tell you a story about my own life, and this is not necessarily in my leadership journey, but just in my improv journey. As you know, we use improv around here to teach soft skills. And when I was first getting back into my improv career, my mid-20s, I went through the Second City program in Chicago, and you go through the program with primarily the same people from start to finish. So I had about 10 or 15 so people I'd spent the past year going through a program with. And there was peaks and valleys, but I had some good friendships in this cohort of humans, I thought. And I'll just say this, back then I played pretty big, which if you don't know what that means, I would show up on stage as this really larger than life character, shocking to no one listening if you're a longtime listener. So some might say I was a scene hog, and I will attest to that right now. I was still new and figuring out my footing and my voice on the improv stage. However, a group of my colleagues on my cohort decided to spin off once the program ended and started an independent team. And I knew nothing about it until one day I was walking downtown Chicago and I saw one of my team members, my cohort members, and he said, "Hey, Erin, are you coming to rehearsal tonight for the independent team?" And I go, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, we're meeting at such and such's house. Come on over. Our coach is going to be one of our teachers that we loved." And I thought to myself, weird, maybe I missed an email. Maybe they just forgot to add me. So I ended up going to the rehearsal and performing with this group, so cleverly titled Going Nowhere, which was foreshadowing at best, for about a year. And I gave a lot of my time and energy to this group. I would be the person creating sign-up geniuses for rehearsals. I found us a rehearsal space. I often found myself in the rehearsals being frustrated because I felt like I was being excluded when it came to scenes or creating, or just there was an air of exclusion that I felt, but I didn't really lean into because I really so desperately wanted to belong. And at that time in my improv career, I didn't have anybody else to play with. This was it. This was all I knew. So again, very young in my improv career. So I kept going with this team for over a year, devoting a lot of time outside of work to it. And I later found out, years later actually, from the guy that I saw walking down the street in Chicago on that day, that just happened to be the day that they were meeting, that I was not supposed to be invited. That the person who was creating the group actually didn't want me in the group. He didn't like me because, I'll give it to him, I was a bit of a scene hog at the time. And that hurt. When I heard that years later, after the year of exclusion, which I eventually did leave the group, I'll tell you about that at the end. It made sense to me. It made sense to me that I was never supposed to be there in the first place. Therefore, I felt excluded the entire time. So all of that to say, my dear peep, and for those of you listening who have felt excluded, we have all felt excluded in our lives. And it's a part of the human experience, to be honest. This is just part of the dance, right? We're humans on this earth trying to navigate life, and sometimes we'll find people that jive with us, and sometimes we'll find people that don't, and that is okay. However, I had my own struggles, but now I have my own epiphanies, and I got some great advice for you. I actually have 5 ways that you can help yourself go from excluded, and especially as somebody who is, a person, an advocate for inclusion, to go from excluded to including yourself. So here are the 5 ways, my friend, that you can cope while battling isolation at work. And shocker, they're going to have an improv twist. So here's one way to cope. Coping mechanism number 1, we'll call it. Yes and yourself. Now, if you don't know what yes and is, it is one of the main principles of improv comedy. It is taking something that a person before you just said, not denying it or judging it, but saying yes and adding to it. It doesn't mean you agree. It is just postponing judgment and allowing the free formation of ideas to follow. So what if you yes-anded yourself here, my dear friend? What if you acknowledge, hey, I feel left out and I'm going to use this as a learning opportunity to understand how others who have felt left out might feel too, and how I can use this as an opportunity to teach. So you're not just accepting the exclusion, you're transforming it into an opportunity for empathy. And I love me some empathy, y'all. We talk all about it in my book. The subtitle of ICU is How to Energize Your Team Through Radical Empathy. So know that empathy is such a sub-through line of this show. It's such a sub-through line of improv, and it can be such a sub-through line of your life because as a people leader, you deeply care about the people that are surrounding you. Empathy is one of the best attraction and retention tools of any leader, but it's also a wonderful tool that makes you feel better as a human. So yes, and yourself and see where that empathy takes you. That's coping mechanism number 1. Here we go. Give me a 2. Coping mechanism number 2 is called the mirror game. Now, this is actually an activity in improv. If you've ever been to Improv 101, they may have had you do what is called mirroring. So you take a scene partner, you and a partner up. One person starts miming a motion. There's no sound involved. This is all nonverbal. And partner 2 has to mirror back what partner 1 is doing with their body language. It's that simple. And then the 2 partners switch. What I am talking about here from an inclusion perspective is I want you to mirror or find someone in your company, your team, your organization who is included and mirror their approach. So how do they interact with the others on their team? What energy do they bring to meetings and interactions and situations? I don't want you to mirror them exactly because you are your own special, amazing, unique human. I want you to add your own spin. This right there is going to help you embody the inclusion vibe that you want to spread. So that is coping mechanism number 2, the mirror game. On to number 3. Change the scene. Now, if you've ever watched a long form improv show, we call it the Herald in improv. We change scenes very quickly. Scenes last probably 5 to 7 minutes. So we do what they call sweep edits, where we tag somebody out, we start a brand new scene. Here's what I want you to do in the scene of your life. Change the scene of where you work with your team. So if you're constantly working with your team on Zoom or in the office, plan an offsite, get the team together, or go out to lunch. Maybe even do an improv game outside during a team meeting, or take a walk. Changing the scene will create a fresh space for connection and inclusion. So if you ever heard that phrase, like if you're having writer's block, go take a walk. I cannot tell you how true that is to me in any creative endeavor I'm going through. If I am stuck, I get up, I move locations. It's actually hilarious because my husband and I both work from home, and I change locations in our home about 5 times a day. He stays in his office. That's just where he's comfortable. He's got his big, monitors. I take my laptop. I'm outside. I'm in our dining room. I'm in our kitchen on a bar stool. Like, I just need to change it up to change my vibe. So if you are feeling excluded, maybe an environmental scene change can change the scene of your life and your team. That was coping mechanism number 3. Here comes number 4. Throw a status switch. So improv is all about changing status. We talk a lot about status when we start learning improv just from a ground roots perspective. One moment in a scene, you could be high status. You could be the CEO. The next scene that you're in, you could be the intern. Same could be true for where you're at in terms of meetings in your organization. Maybe you're the top dog. Maybe you're the highest title in a room in one meeting, and you go into a leadership meeting and you are the lowest in terms of status, quote unquote, in that meeting. If you are feeling excluded and low status, which ultimately exclusion is not performing or using our highest inner voice to speak freely, you need to switch it up. So, how can you lead by example? How can you engage others in a fun, low stakes activity where you are the presenter, you are the facilitator, and that's changing up your status for yourself and the way you interact with your team? So maybe you organize a lunch swap or like a potluck. What's a lunch swap, Erin? I don't know. Maybe it's a potluck lunch that everybody brings something in for the day, and you are the person helping coordinate and helping people place their plates and put placemats out and introducing the foods. Or maybe you are hosting a happy hour. Maybe you're hosting a bad idea brainstorm, which is a super fun idea. You have to come up with all the worst ideas possible. It's just a fun thing to do to change it up, get more creative. Maybe you're hosting and facilitating a birthday for a team member or an anniversary celebration or a fun Friday lunch excursion. Lower the stakes, make these super easy where you can raise your level of status and therefore raise your level of exclusion. See what I mean? So that was number 4. Here is coping mechanism number 5. Improvise new connections. Now, essentially what I'm saying here is gamifying networking. And we love us some games and activities here at Improve It. So maybe you set a challenge to network with one new person or one new department each day in your organization, but make it fun. Maybe you tell yourself, I'm going to create a random acts of conversation project where you chat with someone outside of your circle every day for 5 minutes. You can make it fun. You can ask them, hey, what's the craziest thing you did this weekend? Or, hey, do you love to travel? Where's somewhere cool you've been recently? Or ask them about their favorite TV show. People love to talk about television or music. Find something where you can have an outside of work conversation with this human to engage them in human-to-human connection and see what happens. All right? So those are 5 ways to include yourself while feeling excluded and how to cope. Step 1 is yes and yourself. Step 2, or I should say coping mechanism 2, is the mirror game. Coping mechanism 3 is change the scene. Coping mechanism 4 is throw a status switch. And coping mechanism 5 is improvise new connections. Now, I know what you're thinking. Cool. This is all great with members of the team, Erin, but what if it's not the team collectively who is excluding me? What if it's leadership? And guess what? I'm a leader, but I'm feeling excluded by the leaders of my organization, the people at the top who are supposed to be setting the inclusive tone. Now, this one will call, my friend, for some extra creativity. And I'm going to still use the tools of improv, because that's what we do here, to flip the script and handle this challenge with playfulness, with grace, and maybe even some sparkle. Okay, maybe some pizzazz. So let's get into it. Here are 5 ways Hear what I call the plot remix. If leadership is excluding you to cope. Number one, I'm calling this the silent scene, AKA you are going to observe and gather intel. Now, in improv, sometimes the most powerful moments are those moments of silence where there are no words, there's just observation. And if you feel excluded by leadership, take a step back and I want you to observe the dynamics. Now, this is something that if you're a talker like me, is hard to do. I will tell you that for free. I have to tell myself the acronym WAIT. Why am I talking constantly? But what you can do is watch the interactions of leaders like a detective in a silent film. Watch who's included. What are the unspoken rules? This silent scene approach gives you insight without rushing into a response. So it could be fun. You can make it like you're an undercover agent watching the leaders talk and give yourself a secret spy name. Agent Includo. I don't know. Cheesy, yes, but does it work? Also, yes. So play the game of silent scene and see what happens with the leaders that you feel are excluding you. Number two, host your own show. If you can't get a seat at the leadership table, create your freaking own. And I got to tell you, I've done this so many times. Literally created my own company and podcast to get a seat because I'm going to tell you, it was a hard road. I felt excluded. Same as you, my beautiful peep who shared this vulnerable question. I have felt excluded in many rooms. So when you create your own show, you use your own leadership skills to host your own mini gatherings, whether, like I said, it's a casual lunch, a virtual coffee, chats, brainstorming, jam sessions, and you invite others from across the organization. Everyone starts to see you in a different light. And guess what? When you host it, you can make sure that everyone's involved, everyone's contributing. And before long, you're building a network of allies who see you as the leader, even if the top bosses don't yet. Guess what? When the leadership team gets wind of what you've been cooking up, they're going to come a knocking. So if you are having a hard time feeling included, create your own show. Truly, take it from me, do it. Here is coping missing. You guys, listen, sometimes I don't edit this show. I really don't. You're going to get the real deal. Sometimes you can't talk, and that was one of those moments. Back to you. Number three, you are going to turn the exclusion into an improv game. Now, if you have ever been to an improv class, or maybe you've been in one of our workshops, there's a game called New Choice where you keep switching up actions based on a prompt. So let's say I'm in a scene and my partner and I are pretending to be doctors. And I said to my partner, "Hey doctor, can you hand me the scapula?" And the director from the side of the stage says, "New choice." I have to change up what I said. Can you hand me the scapula? I have to change up the word scapula. So I could say, "Hey, can you hand me the drill?" And then the director might say new choice. And so every time they say new choice, you have to change the last thing that you just said. So this is the game. What you're going to do is to try this mentally with your leader's behavior. So instead of getting stuck on why you're excluded, I want you to flip the perspective each time. So new choice. Maybe they don't recognize your full talents yet. New choice. Maybe they're overwhelmed and they can't see outside of their day to day. New choice. Maybe it's time to bring your unique style and skills to the forefront in a way that cannot be ignored, aka your own show. This mental game will keep you from spiraling into negativity, and it'll help you stay proactive and creative. Here is coping mechanism number 4 for if you're feeling excluded from leadership as a leader. It's called the laugh it off power play. All right. And one of the best ways to break tension in improv on stage is to inject humor. When leadership excludes you, I don't want you to underestimate the power of humor to disarm. So in meetings, use a lighthearted joke or some self-deprecating humor to shift the energy. You're not making fun of yourself. You're showing that you're confident enough to roll with the punches. This is like my MO, you guys. Like this is truly what I do in situations. and it's maybe a defense mechanism or a pattern that I've used my entire life, but I will tell you it works. It might just open a door for leadership to see you differently. So they're looking at you, let's say it's a moment of stress and you're in a meeting that seems really tense and you bring a lighthearted energy to that moment. They are going to look at you as somebody who can take tough moments and turn them into something fun. Be so good, they can't ignore you. I think Robin Williams said that. So be so good that they can't ignore you and insert humor where you can. Finally, coping mechanism 5 for when leadership is excluding you and you are a leader. I'm calling this the plot twist exit. Sometimes in an improv scene, you got to do a dramatic exit. In life, if all else fails and the exclusion persists despite your best efforts, consider this your final scene. Evaluate whether this leadership team aligns with your values and your growth. And if not, my friend, I want you to make a graceful exit, but do it with flair. Picture yourself doing a grand yes and as you leave. Yes, this environment isn't right for me, and I'm moving on to a place where my talents and leadership can truly shine. You're exiting stage left with your head held high. In true improv fashion, every moment is an opportunity to pivot, play, and perform at your best, even when the leadership isn't setting the scene you'd hope for. But whatever happens, I hope you know that now you have the tools to stay resilient, fun, and ready for your next act. I want you to know that you're going to keep improvising, my peeps, because you're just getting started. So I hope this helps our amazing peep with that burning question. And let's repeat it just one more time. When you're building inclusion for those around you, but you yourself are not feeling included, what do you do about that? Giving you 5 coping mechanisms to share with your team. I've given you 5 coping mechanisms that can help you when you feel excluded from leadership. I want to let you know, my friends, we actually offer a workshop called Leadership, which is all about helping you hone your leadership style. The thesis statement is communication plus inspiration equals motivation, and it's going to help you become the inclusive leader you want to be led by. It is a 2-hour in-person workshop, an hour and a half virtual workshop. We can have up to 50 people virtually and up to 100 people in one room. We would love for you to experience this in person. It is so effective, so experiential, and everyone will feel very included while learning. So if this is of interest, reach out to us at the link in the show notes, learntoimproveit.com to learn more. If you are an Improve It peep and you have a burning question that you want answered on this show, either leave us a review with your question or leave us a speak pipe note like my dear friend Jeanette did here on the show. You can find that link in the show notes as well. As always, y'all know what I'm going to say. I want you to keep failing, keep improving, because this world needs that very, very special it that only you can bring. I'm so proud of you for pressing play, for being the amazing leaders of tomorrow and today. And I want you to keep failing, keep improving, because this world needs that very special it that only you can bring. I'll see you next time.